Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Raised Red, Living Blue. I'm Sloan Roden.
I'm Jason Will.
Good morning. We are doing this a little ahead of time since it is the week of Thanksgiving, but this will come out the Monday following. But given that we are living where we are in our time, we're both rocking our teams since it is Iron Bowl week.
It's a podcast divided.
We did not plan it. It just happened. So roll tide, everybody.
Yeah, it's totally organic, just like this show.
But
totally organic.
Mm-hmm. Always be creating.
Do you have anything positive going on? Tell us something good. What's going on good in your world right now?
Oh man. Right now, just really focused on family, Thanksgiving, trying to get Christmas decorations up. Got a few clients in the nurture phase, trying to get everybody, is it worth or is it the time to go out at Christmas? Do we wait? Running numbers. So got some things in the pipe, and that's a positive, and I appreciate it.
So my gratitude segment was going to be this week. We've had a camping trip planned for Thanksgiving night and Friday night, a 2-nighter, our first 2-nighter.
Okay, where?
So grateful the kids want to go camping with Dad. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Because they're the boys are 17 and 15. We're going to go to Bankhead National Forest, but the weather was looking rainy and definitely very cold, but this forecast is starting to improve a little bit. So it's still going to be freezing. I'm talking like 30 degrees, sleeping in the woods.
Like RV or tent?
No, primitive tent camping, no power, no running water.
Just you and the boys?
Yeah, cooking meat over the fire. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. And we'll be back in time Saturday for the Iron Bowl. So that's very, very good. All right. Well, what about the knowledge segment of the show? You ready to drop some knowledge on us? What you reading? What's going on over there?
Okay. So I'm reading this book called 37 Words, Title 9 in the 50 Years of Fighting Sex Discrimination.
Oh.
I want to say
very timely,
right? I want to say it was 1972 is when Title IX was passed. So 2022 was the 50-year anniversary, and it was celebrated, especially all throughout women's sports that year. You saw, broadcasts around whether it was women's softball, women's NCAA basketball, the WNBA. A lot. Billie Jean King was on a lot of broadcasts. So it was really important. And people were talking about this book then, and I'm so bad about educational nonfiction of ordering it on Amazon and then it sits on a shelf. But I, on another political podcast, I heard that there are aspects of Project 2025 that can put Title IX at risk. And so I thought, I should really pick this book up. And it's very dense. I am not very far in it. But this is the interesting kind of tidbit. It really started because this woman, one, they didn't realize there was not the name or the term sex discrimination was brand new. So it's like, they knew something was happening, but they didn't know what to call it. And women were not being hired for professor jobs at universities. And so they started tracking the number of how many female graduates were in that department or major compared to how many women were professors. And that really started to show the disparity. So that was the start of Title IX, was women trying to get professor jobs at universities.
That's interesting.
And so there's a section on sports, and that's really the only way I've known about it is if a university receives federal funding, you have to have, I want to say it's an equal number of women's sports compared to men's sports. So right now it's just in the very beginning, and hearing that sex discrimination, that term is not that old, and women having to realize, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. I didn't know how to describe it. So it's really good. I will keep everybody updated as I work through it, but very, very timely right now.
Yeah, and a good segue into our main talking point, the Blue Bracelet Movement. And so let's take a little break, and then when we come back, we're going to pause for station identification. That's a
WMSR.
Yeah, this is where sponsors would go if we had sponsors. So let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll do a deep dive into the Blue Bracelet Movement.
Love it.
Well, let's dive in this Blue Bracelet Movement. I mean, you're so much more well versed on it than me. Let's talk about, like, how did it get started? Was it one mom's video that went viral on TikTok?
That I don't know, because anything that goes viral, by the time I see it, it's got so much audio around it. I'm not an early adopter. I'm not that cool, but I am on TikTok, so I'm at least half a smidge cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know the origin. One idea I saw was white women saying, so we don't feel so alone post-election, kind of a way to identify and find community. Let's make blue bracelets. And then other women, whether it's like white women, women of color, people in the queer community, can kind of identify like who are our people. It's a little, discreet kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting point. I've seen some Black women creators on Instagram say, thank you for kind of taking a step and showing yourself. But if you're going to do it, we ask that you buy these from a Black woman, a Black artist. So then it takes that a step further into, you want to show that you're an ally in a safe space. But then you really put your money where your mouth is. Like, for example, I, for years, didn't shop at Hobby Lobby because this is going to be a real deep cut. I did not agree with their stance, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court, that they do not pay for birth control in their employees' health insurance because it is against their religion. And I said, well, I'm going to vote with my dollars, and I'm not going to shop at Hobby Lobby. And, you try good, better, best on everything. And sometimes you just need some cheap filler shit for your Christmas tree and stuff. But I really try not to. But it's that kind of thing. Like, where you spend your money counts. So there's one side of it saying, hey, yes, thank you for identifying yourself. But if you're going to, like, don't put your money in some big box store like Amazon or Walmart. Please buy it from a Black small business.
Well, I saw a TikTok with a very emotional Black woman who was post-election, and she was very, very upset. But the basic point of her TikTok was that like her whole entire life, she's never really been made to feel human by the white community. She feels like she's different towards or in recognition like an animal. Like, it's lesser, it's not human, it's more, she's more of an animal. And so, it's very hard for us to relate to that, but it's also, I think we want to, like, I've wanted to tell people, like, I voted for Obama, like, I'm with you. But I think I take your point where it's like they just want to be something simple as make eye contact and smile. You're going to do that to people of your own race. We need to stop, having all these lines where it's like red, yellow, black, white. It's like humans, people, and all, we have insecurities and feelings, and it's all about how we make people feel. So I love the action part of this. I would say some people, like, it's helpful for me. Like, if I wore a blue bracelet, I might be reminded to act better. So sometimes
like
I need
the
visual.
WWJD.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
Gosh, is this the new WWJD bracelet?
It might be. So some of us, I mean, I think that's why some people get, things tattooed on them, just because they need to be reminded, like, hey, be a good person today.
Oh, that's interesting that you said that. Some women are saying, like, no, like, don't make it a blue bracelet, because another side is like, okay, well, women that regret their decision for who they voted for could still wear a blue bracelet and try to skate by. And some are saying get like a blue heart tattoo on your wrist or on your middle finger. I mean, that's a forever stance right there.
It really is. But I think we've got to be mindful of the fact that some people voted a certain way because they didn't want to get divorced. They didn't want to. I mean, there was Fox News hosts saying, like, if my wife votes Democrat, they don't say Democratic anymore for the Democratic Party; they say Democrat.
Yeah.
Then I'll divorce her. And so I think there was a lot of pressure, like it's just like let's keep the peace type of thing in the household.
There's a lot of pressure on women to, you might have seen this, and I might get it wrong. Women are supposed to work like they don't have children, but raise their kids and keep the home like they don't work. So there's such a double standard.
Yeah.
It's like, God, damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I don't have kids, but I can, walking throughout the world and in my observations, I can see, and even as a woman, I know or have felt that perfectionist pressure on me that I think, could be, is it societal? Is it family? Is it like what was passed down like through generations of my family? There's probably some, religious component to that. So some of those things, it's hard to identify and break down and really work through to get to that like freedom on the other side.
Yeah, I agree. But I think, what we were talking about is, I think this is good if it's a symbol against something, like against misogyny, against sexual predator, sexual assault. But then you bring up a lot of different reasons why it's helpful to people.
Yep.
So, and it's definitely so much more discreet than a MAGA hat.
It is. And I will say I've seen, it kind of, you get on like you're on like the Blue Bracelet algorithm and you're on like one side of it, and then it kind of takes you a bit to get to the other side of it. That's why I had to like go back and forth. But I know two instances specifically, and it was Black women. One was like somewhere in Central Florida, another was in Texas, and they were saying, we are, we're in a very rural, red, not just Red Sea, but predominantly white sea. And it would, because one of them said, I went to the gym and I noticed myself looking at wrists. And she said, it just would have been nice to have seen one. And, and there's always that kind of like discreet, you kind of make eye contact, do a nod, and then kind of move on. Don't do like that. Hey, sister, I'm with you. It's all, God, it's all about how you use it and handle it and what are your actions around it. And so that's what I say with some of these creators, like there's some nuance of where they live and their lived experience and why, they're against it. And I hear and I support that. And then I hear these other sides, which is also very interesting. And then I see it, from a few white women because of their lived experiences. It's just, man, it's hard to take a poll, but last week we talked so much about exposure, and just each time you gain insight to a different perspective, it really just enriches the whole thing.
Yeah. I think the only negative that I can see from it is if somebody's just wearing it so they can relate, like a white woman's wearing it to relate to a Black woman, to go, hey, see what I did? And I think
it's not a gold star.
Yeah, your point is actions speak louder than words, or a symbol.
Yeah, and from my personal experience, I'm really a straight passing white woman. So in some spaces, people say I have a lot of privilege, and when I get that, I have to sit with that and understand that perspective and try not to get defensive. That's a big thing. I'm really working on not getting defensive. But when I come across new people, whether in, with clients and other real estate spaces or just like personal spaces, it's like talk with people, what do they talk about? They start to drop their beliefs. You can drop a few little breadcrumbs like a lot of us Democrats have to do and see if they start picking up and do you have common ground? And then identify like, okay, are you a safe place for me? Are you someone that I can be myself with? And that goes to how you move about the world and what you find important, comes out in conversation. When people are looking for those signs, they can find them easily.
That is one of my big pet peeves. And, you mentioned it in the opening of episode 2 about career suicide. It's a big problem for me because there's such a double standard with this. Like if you're working with a client and you start to pick up on the vibe that they're very conservative, then you're going to retreat.
Yeah. I'm going to remain closeted with those people.
Yeah. So, you can't, you have to be very cautious of who you reveal yourself to, your true nature, your true thoughts and beliefs, because there can be retribution. People will literally not want to work with you. There's agents, I think we mentioned this already on one of our few episodes about the agents at the lake that are in the closet and can't ever come out. Because if they did, they would lose business. But yeah, so they have their community there, but I would say, there's a much larger portion of ultra conservative white men.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a very rural area.
That makes sense.
So I think they just have to be careful, just like you do, but maybe to a little bit of a larger extent, because Birmingham is a blue dot and where they are is very much a red sea.
It gets red very fast.
Yeah, I walk into appointments. Fox News is on in the house. It goes there. I was walking my dog the other day before the election, and one of my neighbors, who's not even really a close neighbor, but he's on our little loop, was like, just walking my dog. He's like, "Oh, hey, and don't vote for Kamala." And I'm just like, dude, can I just walk? I'm just walking my dog.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know where I come from and what I believe in, but he's like, you aren't voting for Kamala, are you? And I don't know what I do. I've gotten so good at playing this stuff off because I just don't engage with people like that. But, and that's one of the things I think is coming out of this. I think it's one of the things that is responsible for maybe the popularity of the Blue Bracelet Movement, because people are wondering, now we're seeing that this margin of victory was very, very slim. So it was not a landslide. They're trying to make it a landslide, a mandate. It was not. We did show up and show out, maybe not as much as we did in 2020,
right,
but it was very, very tight. And so a lot of people, millions upon millions of people are like, what do we do now? How do we react? Where do we go? Like, I have a neighbor friend of mine. I want to have him on this show because he is struggling. He sent me a text and said, how far are we out from the election? A couple weeks now?
Maybe
3 weeks? He's still not doing good. He's still struggling. And he wants to have a beer and commiserate. And and I'm like, man, you poor guy. So a lot of people are like, what do we do? They feel helpless. They feel scared. And really, it's an activism.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm hearing.
Yes.
It's a call to action, but more specifically, activism. Like, don't just wear your blue bracelet.
Right.
Get out and do something.
Yeah. For people here, there is the Jefferson County Democrats. There's Hoover Democrats, which I believe like Hoover and Vestavia Democrats have like joined forces. There's others. I have a sorority sister of mine works for, I don't know if it's like the Democratic Party in Alabama or like what the affiliation is, but she worked for Doug Jones and just recently for Elizabeth Anderson. And so she said 100%, whatever you want, I'll do it. But I want her to come on and tell us, like, how do just everyday people, let's say not everybody wants to find out how you run for office, but how do we get engaged, because one of the biggest criticism, that's kind of a negative word, but critique,
that sounds nice. Maybe. That's kind of in the middle.
Is the Alabama Democratic Party is like kind of a joke. And so
I've kind of heard that too. Is that for real though? I mean, I've heard they're organized.
Yes, that's what I've heard. I don't know. And so I think it's like,
but I've never shown up to see for myself.
Same. But I think that's why it's important to get involved in these local, just like taking a play out of the Tea Party book. They ran for school boards and county commission and city council and just started infiltrating that way, which, hate that we're a little late to the party, but I would rather see people do that than like the guy in 2010 who was like, I'm a career dentist, but I'm going to run for, U.S. Congress now. Like I get the argument of we need term limits and not having lifelong politicians, but people also have careers and trades that they train for, and you need institutional knowledge. And so I don't know what the balance is. I know we need some balance, but there are people in the House of Representatives who I think just got there because of screaming craziness, and I don't think they're actually qualified. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. I just
don't get me started on the MJT.
Yeah, so it's I don't MTG. Have the answer, and I agree that you need diversity of ideas, diversity of opinion. This can go into DEI, and just last week moved out of subcommittee, I think. They want to repeal Biden's DEI Act. I couldn't find so much about it, so I don't want to talk to it fully, but having diversity of thought and opinion, but also race and gender and all of these things, but also where you are in your career, having that group of people come together ultimately makes the best decisions for the whole. I don't ever want to be in a room. Now, okay, you want to get commiserating, you want to be in a room, and you want to be a safe place. Yes, I get that. You're trying to get some shit done. I don't want to be in a silo.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody to challenge and ask questions and poke some holes. And are we doing the best thing? And if everybody is saying yes, this is the wrong group of people to be making these decisions. And usually I'm the one asking those questions. Sometimes it is met. I always try to do it respectfully, because I respect everyone on the opposing side. We agree. Sometimes we don't agree. What riles me up so much is when it is met with just straight resistance and defensiveness and wanting to shut alternative points of view down.
Yeah.
And that to me is just saying, we want you to rubber stamp and we want you to control, or we want to control you. And I don't do well being controlled.
Or we want you to agree with us or with our side, or we're not going to do business with you. I mean, I wanted to make this point just in case people were not really picking up on what you were throwing down on the last episode. I mean, can be very detrimental to us and our careers. I mean, people will just literally say, well, I'm not working with them because they're on the wrong side.
Right.
And there is this concept of, and I think it's on both sides. It's fair to say it's on both sides, but it's like I'm for free speech, but it's like, you were talking about this, I think last episode, I'm a patriot, I
love my country.
Yeah.
Yes.
The right doesn't own patriotism. Right. They don't own the Constitution. And they talk a lot about the cancel culture of the left, but we are taking a risk of being canceled right now.
Right. Yeah, it's scary to put something out there where you are in the minority.
I think for me, this is my form of taking action, my form of activism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal. It's a huge step. So far, not regretting it at all. It's very cathartic.
Yeah.
So having this space is great for me.
Yeah.
So I hope, for me, it's like I'm tired of living vicariously through my liberal friends that live loud and proud on social and share a lot of truths and stuff. I'm just liking and hearting it. Now I'm, joining it. It's baby steps, but kind of join the fight a little bit. But let's leave it there and move on to headlines.
Headlines. Let's rock and roll.
All right, we're going to take a little break. This is, again, where you could sponsor or highlight your local business. All right, it's time for headlines, everybody. The headlines that I picked out for today were like real estate related.
Oh, okay. Super
okay,
fun.
so
I've got a few. So let's start with yours.
All right, so the first, I'm going to start with national first.
Okay.
So
macro.
Here,
work micro.
Yeah, we'll go micro. Here's the headline: Trump election boosts Republican homebuyer optimism. So optimism increasing on the right, but is sinking on the left.
Right.
So here's some data: 1 in 5 Republicans now say that they're more likely to buy a home versus 24% of Dems who say they're less likely.
What was the Republican percentage?
1 in 5 Republicans say that they're much more likely to buy a home now. That
20%.
24% of Dems are like their hopes of buying a home are sinking.
Okay.
18% of men more likely, women 10% more likely to buy. So, what are you hearing anything among your circle about where they think this is going in terms of home ownership and home buying?
I think everybody I talk to is kind of the same, and if they're in a home, they are really just holding on to it and waiting, either until interest rates come down or surprise the absolute perfect one comes up that they just will move heaven and earth to make happen. But I think, multiple people are like, we're into that, prepping the home, doing the things, getting the painters, the landscaper. I mean, that takes, you got to get on somebody's schedule. I mean, it takes a bit to prep a home for market. So there's some optimism that maybe not necessarily of who won, but that the election is over and some things will stabilize.
Yeah.
And so I have people in that prep phase now so that when the right one comes up, they can make quick decisions.
The market seems to be responding positively to Trump's Treasury pick. My wife's in mortgage. She was giddy because, I don't know, we're down like 41 basis points or something. I don't know all those data, but she was high-fiving herself this morning. So Yellowhammer, for the local, I was looking at Yellowhammer News, and they just came out with some stats for the state of Alabama as a whole. Mm-hmm. So looking at...
which is run by like 2 guys younger than me.
Yeah, it's
like, word up.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So sales declined 12.8% year over year. So what does that mean? Well, just kind of seeing what is the reality. How does this national conversation affect us locally? Mm-hmm. And this is more of a national headline, but Realtor.com came out with an article either yesterday or this morning talking about, it's like one of the best times for home buyers in the last 5 years right now because inventory is increasing. So Yellowhammer News said statewide sales are down 12.8%. Mm-hmm. Prices are up 6.7% from last year, but we expect that to course correct because inventory is up 32.6% year over year. So we know that with an increase in inventory, we're likely going to see a decrease in prices. And then month over month, September to October, prices were down just over 2%. So it's very slow and gradual. Mm-hmm. So that's a good recipe for home buyers. And, the NAR chief economist,
Lawrence Yun?
Yep, is saying that 6% is probably going to be our new normal for interest rates. Mm-hmm. That's a very healthy interest rates in a lot of economists' opinions, but it'll probably fluctuate from high 5s to low 6s in that range. And then, the 2025 forecast seems to be very consistent with higher inventory, lower prices, and lower rates.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Alabama still, the numbers still fall in line. This was the most fascinating part of that Yellowhammer news article, is that we're still, we're still in an affordable real estate market. Like, home ownership has not gotten out of reach in Alabama. It's still a very affordable state.
Yeah. This is interesting. This is from, end of October. So year to date 23 versus 24, good through 10/31. So you kind of did national and then state, and then I've got a little more localized.
Yeah.
Units were down only 3%. For 23, a little over 35,000 were sold. And then 24, it was 34,000. So, 3% down is not that bad. Volume is what is like the really thing to look at. 10.4 billion year to date in 23 versus 10.7 billion year to date in 24. That is a 0.2% increase. So what that's saying is, yes, units have fallen and days on market have risen. Well, from 53 to 58, which is still not a long time. That's just not selling in the first 3 hours. But like, units might be down, but prices continue to go up. I had a conversation this morning with one of my nurture clients, and she had looked into what it would take to break her lease. Lease is up in June. And I said, that is a very reasonable amount. That's great information. We might want to go ahead and start looking now in December and in January when there's fewer people looking. And you might have to pay money to break your lease, which would suck, but you might be better off rather than waiting to spring and summer when more people on the market and prices start to increase. And that's one of those can you make it work? What are the variables? There are, some things that work for people or whatnot, but units going down, days on market ticking up barely, but prices are continuing to rise. And I don't think there's been a single month this year where prices fell in the Birmingham area.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love to see a 5 in front of an interest rate though. And I want to share one of my tips. This is free for charge if you use me or not, but I'd love you to use me, Sloan Run. When days on market are ticking up and maybe the seller has decreased the price, or maybe they've not even done their first price reduction yet, which is typically my best time that I like to go in there and snatch it up.
Yeah.
I would recommend, don't just offering lower in price. Get with your lender, you, realtor, lender, work together, because it takes a little more time and energy. But do a rate buy down.
Yep.
It's gonna save you more money in the long run. But this is I think something that if you've not bought and sold, you just wouldn't know, and that's okay. That's why we have jobs. It keeps values consistent in your area.
Yeah.
And like, that's important, because if, at least if you have consistent values, then your neighborhood that you just spent money to invest in will continue to support itself.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good point. So you're saying you have your own headline you want to talk about?
I do have my own headline.
What's it all about?
Nothing I like scrolling the gram on a Sunday night. It is from al.com. So getting a little more local.
Yep, loveal.com.
And it is an interview with Shamari Figures, the newly elected District 2 congressman from Alabama. And the headline is, I love it, "I don't care if you call it Trump care. Expand Medicaid, new Alabama congressman says." A little history, and I don't, please jump in where things that I don't. Governor Kay Ivey has been a
governor.
Governor.
The governor.
Has been a maybe like aggressively against Medicaid expansion. Not having like Medicaid expansion, rural hospitals have closed. Think about small towns. Your hospital in some communities is the economic driver in the community. So that's important from an economy standpoint. It creates jobs. When you close a hospital, those nurses and doctors and who drives the ambulance and janitorial staff, all of those people now have to leave and go elsewhere. So then you have a declining community. But then on the other hand, let's take it from not an economic standpoint, but from like a human aspect. There are areas where it takes 90 minutes to get an ambulance to somebody. Or you have to drive, like there is not a hospital nearby. Like you are having to drive an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to for your doctor's appointments, your OB appointments, to deliver a baby. That's just that's not just saying poor people need health insurance, which everyone deserves health insurance, but
right.
there's so much more. And I think what ties us to it is when communities don't have resources and they don't have thriving economies and there's dwindling populations, that affects real estate values.
100%.
Talk about a Venn diagram and where we can find common ground.
Okay.
Shamari says, or Congressman Figures, not like I'm like calling him by name like he's my friend. But I think I've asked for an
he might want to
introduction.
swing by the farm for some turkey.
God, I'd love it so much. Maybe a turkey that I've cooked before. Okay, he said we have to have responsible government spending. I think everybody can agree with that.
Yeah.
We have to make sure the federal government is spending money on projects that make sense, that are investments in communities. Community growth helps real estate, helps everybody, helps bring new business to your community to help grow it, make everybody more money, and that are going to help communities become more economically viable. We have to invest in programs that further our ability to train up a workforce that's attractive to companies that bring those types of jobs into communities. We keep going, but this is really good. I'm really getting into it.
You're evangelizing right now. I am.
Not many companies want to move into a community without a hospital. Not many families want to live there. Not many retirees want to settle down there. Government has an obligation to make sure that we're providing at least that basic local infrastructure to influence the local economy.
Love it.
Talk about, a way that you can, you have a government to like help lay that foundation, and then you start working with public-private partnerships that then grow it even more, that then in turn makes other businesses and industries want to come to that community. But someone's got to start that groundwork, and a lot of times it's the government, and that's important, and we need that in our state. Georgia, have you spent much time in like small town Georgia?
No, not enough.
Georgia should be a test case in like a poli-sci class somewhere, for how they have used public-private partnerships to infuse their small towns, where all of ours have like gone to die.
Yeah, I mean, Bruton.
Oh,
for one, cute little town, but a lot of empty.
Yep, a lot of empty.
Yeah.
And so, my dad and grandfather during the pandemic started going to dirt track races, and they follow these guys and go on these trips and go to like Macon and Noonan, and I went through like not just Blue Ridge, but like Ellijay, and it's beautiful, and they're vibrant, and there's businesses in the town squares and bustling, and that is an example where you need those two sectors to come together. That's the greater good for the economy of not just that local community, but really helps the state overall as well.
Love it.
So I'm really fired up and excited for our new congressman.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is what party affiliation is this?
Democrat.
All right. So you did not come out and say that.
Oh, thank you.
So, it sounded a lot like he might be a Republican. So that just goes to show you. I mean, you talked about common ground and commonality, but you didn't identify the political party. I don't think, unless I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's interesting. I mean, it sounded. I mean, we were talking about the economy. And we're talking a lot of the same talking points.
Things that we all can get on the same page on. And just a little history. Every 10 years, you have the census. This is why it is so important for you to fill out and send back in your census paperwork. Mm-hmm. It determines, like, new districts. Are populations growing? Do states increase districts? Are populations dwindling? Do they lose districts? And one thing that came out of the 2020 census in Alabama is it said our Black population was so high in Alabama, it was deserving of a second seat or a second representative. So this went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Alabama State Legislature redraws the new congressional maps, and it was gerrymandered to hell and back. And it got sent to the Supreme Court, I want to say. Somebody fact check me. And was, like, struck down by Trump-stacked Republican court. Right. And said this isn't good enough. And so a lot of areas were affected. But yeah, so then there was a newly drawn District 2, two, like, brand new people running for it, no incumbent. And so it was a Republican, I can't remember her name, I'd have to look up, and then Shamari Figures, and he was the Democratic candidate and prevailed. So now we have two in Alabama, District 1 and District 2.
Love it. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's a wrap on episode 3.
Yes.
I want to thank everybody for their support, but we need to invite people to support us.
Yes.
And it's so simple. Mm-hmm. So they need to know where they can find us, and then so tell them where they can find us, and then tell them what they need to do once they find us.
Yes. Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. Yes. So on Spotify and YouTube, depending on your personal platform preference, please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have something you would like us to cover, a story that you would like us to tell, or if you have your own personal story that you would like to tell about being raised red and living blue, we welcome you to come on. They're going to start having guests soon. I'm really excited.
Yeah, if you've been affected by, the abortion laws and things like that, I mean, there's a lot of great stories out there just to help people, humanize a lot of these topics.
Yep.
Because like I've mentioned before, I've got plenty of friends say, hey, if you're running into an issue with abortion laws, just get in a car and drive to a state that has, less restrictions. And for a lot of people, it's not as easy as that. So it really helps to hear real life stories from real life people.
Right. Well, everybody, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are officially, for the rest of us, moving into Christmas holiday season. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.